We are drowning in Lower Decks goodness down here. We're scrubbing Jeffrey tubes and cleaning latrines and taking mysterious items and fluids from the holodeck because we are cadets and ensigns. I'm Michael Dismuke. I am a freelance writer for STA, in addition to being a blogger on Continuing Missions, which is the #1 fan site for Star Trek Adventures RPG. And of course, we have with us the indubitable Jim Johnson.
Hey everybody, Jim Johnson. I'm the project manager and line editor for the Star Trek Adventures RPG, published by Modiphius Entertainment these many years. Co-host on this here show with Michael, and having a lot of fun. We're right in the middle of our Lower Decks kind of page through, as it were, chapter by chapter, talking about the book. Getting ready. Actually, by the time this thing airs, it'll probably already be available for pre-order. But if for some reason we're ahead of the game, then it's imminent. So go grab yourself a pre-order. And in short order, you'll be getting, I don't know, I'm not sure where I put my print copy. Oh, well, I won't be able to show it off today. But anyway, yeah, so looking forward to it. And we've got a great cast of guests tonight. As always, we always try to have more people on the show because it's fun to hear different perspectives and to riff and to talk about all things Star Trek. And tonight, all things Lower Decks. Yeah. So I'll start at the bottom, just work my way around, no particular order here. Scott, introduce yourself, sir.
Hey, I'm Scott Pearson. I'm the canon editor on Star Trek Adventures. And so I just go through and try to make sure everything lines up as much as possible with 6 decades of content.
Yep. Scott is a invaluable resource. Anything that my writers don't catch or I don't catch or between that brain trust, we send it over to Scott and then Scott corrects us on everything that we got wrong or adds texture to stuff that we weren't maybe thinking about. And I love Scott because sometimes I can say, hey, Scott, we need a novel reference for this, and this. And sure enough, 99 times out of 100, you haven't failed to bring up something cool and something interesting that we weren't thinking about. And that just adds that extra little layer of Easter eggy goodness to the manuscripts. So always grateful to have you here, sir. Thank you. Al, introduce yourself.
How's it going? Al Spader. Freelance writer for Star Trek Adventures role-playing game, GM_Admiral on all the social medias. Excited to get into some species life paths tonight.
Indeed. Yeah, we'll be talking all about Chapter 5 tonight, player options and tools and weapons. And Aaron, please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Aaron Pollyea. I'm a longtime freelance writer for Star Trek Adventures. I'm kind of one of those guys that does the starships, technology, science, all that stuff. If you've been listening to this podcast for a while, you've probably seen my face a few times.
Yep. And Aaron and Scott are two of the longtime veterans, just like me. We've been around since the core book, even before the core book, doing the play testing and the early drafting and getting into the living campaign. And of course, Scott was there very, very early on, helping with the development of the whole Shackleton till call experience, working with Dayton Ward. So got some veterans, and then Al and Michael came in right around the pandemic, and so we got a good cross section of experience here to talk to you all about Lower Decks. So tonight we're continuing the series Lower Decks. We've talked about a bunch of the chapters. And tonight we'll be talking all about Chapter 5, which is player options. So this is 2 sub-chapters. One of them is new life path options. I know the fans are always eager to get new life paths and new species with which to play different kinds of characters. And then tools and equipment, tools and weapons, I guess. Lower Decks, is I've mentioned it before, but like in 22 minutes of an episode, they managed to pack those episodes full of stuff. Right, just like not just plot and character, but just stuff to look at, and technology and weapons and things. They're just throwing all kinds of stuff at you, and somehow they manage to make it all make sense in their 22 or 23 minutes or whatever it is. So we, as we were working on the book, we just tried to pack it as full as we could of as much cool stuff as we could to cram in here, and we're going to just talk about that tonight. So I don't know that we have any other particular place to start other than just jumping right into the different life paths, I think. So, Al, I think you took a chunk of this chapter, as I recall, and Scott, certainly, add any flavor or color you want as we're talking about these different species. Now, some of these are species that are originated in Lower Decks. So Lower Decks, of course, had an opportunity to create a whole bunch of new strange new worlds, strange new life forms, and we took a few of those. And then a handful of these are from like legacy series, right? We've got an original series species in here, and we've got some next gen species in here. So let's just actually it's all next gen original series or Lower Decks. So good cross section here of species. So why don't we just Al, take it away. Tell us a little bit about the first one on the list.
Yeah. So I think we have 8 total species in here.
Yeah.
I know that Aaron worked on one of them, and I worked on some of the others, but I really wanted to get some of the new species introduced, at least the species that we got enough information about on Lower Decks so that we could produce something, because there are many species in there that we just get a few quick hits on. So the first one on the list is the Aprigosians. If you remember the episode Strange Energies, these are the mathematicians slash they almost like spiritualized numbers was the kind of idea that we got about them, and so I thought that would make a really fun playable species, like a mathematician type species that's really ingrained in their culture and whatnot. And then, of course, the lingering effects of these strange energies on the planet, how that might change the genetics of a species that is dwelling there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One of the things I like about the Aprigosians is they are a species that is not a Federation world member, not even a protectorate or necessarily I guess they might be an ally, but it's just I like having them in here because it gives players another option to play a species that's not from the Federation, right? You can play, maybe if you want to use them as a player character, they could maybe be sponsored to join the Academy, or maybe they're just they just happen to be an Aprigosian assigned to your ship for whatever reason, whether it's a cultural exchange or officer transfer, or the officer I forgot, I just blanked on the name, the officer transfer program, the thing
exchange program.
Exchange program, thanks. Any other thoughts about Aprigosians? Scott, Aaron?
Go ahead, Scott.
I was just going to say that, yeah, I do like the idea of having non-Federation characters in there, because you see that occasionally on the shows that you'll get a guest star who is assigned for some sort of special mission or something. But for the role-playing game, players could really dive into the idea of what's it like to be a civilian on a starship and getting tangled up in Starfleet stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say that when I watched this episode, it always felt like that they were becoming a protectorate of the Federation, like on their way to becoming a member world. Just because, hey, it's Starfleet installing a subspace communications device on their planet, but that doesn't mean that they are Federation yet. And that would be, to me, another interesting role-playing possibility of, here, I'm the first Aprigosian to serve on a Starfleet vessel, but our world is still going through the process of becoming a member of the Federation. And then you can try to explore all those steps culturally of what it means to join the Federation.
Mm-hmm. I'm all about those strange energies. We saw what it did to Jack Ransom, so I would love to see an Aprigosian get up on the ship, and then maybe they get close to someone, have a friendship with someone, and those residual energies do something to the other player character. That would be a lot of ways you could spin those strange energies.
Well, one of the talents that they have access to is called residual strange energies, and I'll let people have fun with that concept once they read it, because I think there's lots of really fun, silly things you can do with that particular talent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and of course, if you're a game master in a group and you're you're running a campaign, maybe not in the lighthearted, silly kind of lower decks kind of feel, that could have some very practical uses too, right? You could do all kinds of things with that. I guess we'd have to think about. Actually, no. I mean, I guess the way it's written, there are no real restrictions. If you want to turn a, well, actually, no, it's a simple object. I wouldn't call a tricorder or a phaser a simple object, right? Those are quite a bit more complicated. But if you need, I'm just thinking of an engineer, right? Scotty's comment about using the right tool for the right job, right? If you need to turn a wrench into a hammer, boy, bing, there you go. You're off and running. But yeah, I mean, certainly for a lower decks kind of feel of a campaign, you can do all kinds of silly stuff with that. So good stuff.
And of course, we started with the Badgie lessons here for each species, which I think are really entertaining and quirky and fun, that I think people will get a kick out of.
Yeah, they're little short paragraphs that just add a little context and a little texture to the species write up. And they're from Badgie's point of view, so it's just a nice little lower decks kind of touch that we threw in there. So I think, I don't remember if that was Michael or Al who originated that idea.
Al
put it out. Yeah, great idea, buddy.
Thanks.
Really good stuff. All right, so that covers the first one, the Aprigosians, and we'll go right on to the next one. This was a species that was hinted at in the Next Generation, especially if you were paying attention to the deck plans. And I mean, I don't think it was mentioned maybe more than once on screen. If that, Scott, I'll have to lean on you to remember if it was actually mentioned on screen. But we had that whole concept on the Galaxy class ships of cetacean operations, where there's actually dolphins living on the ship, and of course the ship is gigantically huge. Of course, sure, why not have a dolphin tank in the ship, right? And I remember the old, I don't know where they are, the old Rick Sternbach Galaxy class deck plans that were made in the 90s. It was just this gigantic book full of like 17 by 24 fold out deck plans of the Enterprise, deck by deck by, I mean, every single deck and every single quarters and every single room on the ship was laid out. And in one of those just happened to be a bunch of dolphins. And so of course the cetacean operation officers got their full introduction on lower decks. Those two characters, and Matt and Kamolu, right? And they've been in a couple episodes now. I think we saw them again in season 3. And so it seemed like a no-brainer to include them in here as a playable species. I've seen, I apologize, I don't remember their name on Twitter. There's a huge fan of the cetaceans on Twitter, and I think they're also an artist. And they've made this piece of art of a beluga whale in like a EVA suit. Mm-hmm. With like legs and arms and stuff, just walking around. It's like, of course, it totally makes sense, because like, why not have a cetacean going on an away team in a suit, right? So, who wants to go on a length about the cetaceans here?
Aaron, did you get a chance to work on this, or was it somebody else? Because I know this is the one species I didn't do.
This was somebody else, but I might have had like input behind the scenes. I don't remember, because I've actually done a lot of thinking about how cetaceans would function in Starfleet.
Well, that's what I was going to say. That's so hard to believe, because I know Aaron is one of the individuals who introduced in our USS Pioneer game a cetacean that we have on our vessel. And so when I saw this, I was just like, oh, Aaron must have written this. But
believe it or not, I didn't. Yeah. But a lot of the ideas are very similar to the ones that I put together for Pioneer. So that, I mean, great minds think alike, I guess. And this works really, really well. The only difference I think I had for the cetacean stuff that I wrote up was that I actually had differences between like humpbacks, bottlenose dolphins, belugas, and things like that, since they're all different species.
Maybe we could talk about how to adapt these. Yeah. Some people may not be able to visualize, well, how am I going to actually have a dolphin, or a cetacean running around the ship? And maybe, Aaron, you can talk about, it does mention it a little bit here under the trait of cetacean, but for players who are interested in playing a dolphin with some porpoise, what are some things they can do to adapt?
Okay, a good time, right, Michael?
Yeah, I can talk about that now if you want me to.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. So in our game, we introduced a science officer that is a marine biologist that's named Swifttail of the Easter Island pod. And so she's actually a bottlenose dolphin. She does not stay in a specific little cetacean ops area. Her room is a normal quarters, but it fills up halfway with water whenever she goes in there to go to sleep. So she can float around. Otherwise, she actually has cybernetic Waldos. So they're like little arms that are actually installed into her nervous system. So that's what she uses to manipulate things. But she also wears an anti-gravity harness that actually allows her to float through the ship. And so she'll float through the ship standing up on her tail. So she doesn't take as much room up as she would if she was like nose to tail, horizontally. And she's incredibly happy and cheerful, as most bottlenose dolphins would assume to be.
She's great at spacewalking, and it's known that she usually joins her two friends that happen to be a exo comp and a Horta, and they kind of hang out and save the ship on a couple occasions.
I love it.
Yeah, I really love the idea of the three-dimensional thinking talent that has access to them, because conceptualizing that as a species that typically just traverses in 2 dimensions, like someone that's always got the up, down, and all of that stuff going on, it makes a lot of sense that they would have this conceptual understanding of space around them. So I really I enjoyed that talent when I read it.
And if we match this, I think it's with the Shackleton Expanse, isn't it? Where it talks about cetacean ships. Is that Shackleton? So, I mean, if people out there want to have fun, play a fully cetacean crew. That would be an awesome ship to see, especially if they maybe are exploring marine planets. And maybe that's their special mission, is working with aquatic species. I would personally, that would be like the My Little Pony of Star Trek to me. I would love to see that show.
Oh, yeah, that'd be awesome. In fact, I just thinking about some of the great ship write-ups that Aaron has done over the years, where you've built in the idea. I mean, it was already present to some extent, but you've really reinforced the idea that certain species and certain polities have their own shipyards and build their own versions of starships, right? So there might be an ambassador class that was built entirely by the cetaceans and completely customized from the inside to cater to their needs. So like on the outside, it certainly looks like an ambassador class ship, or whatever class ship you have. But inside it's completely different because it's all staffed by cetaceans. I think that would just be, you're right, that would just be an amazing campaign to try out something different.
And the big bads are whale probes.
Yeah, whoever built the whale probes, yeah.
They're just up against the fleet of whale probes.
I'm really glad that Lower Decks added them, and that made it possible for us to add them in, because it really does seem like it was a long time coming. Like Jim mentioned that it was in the blueprints. Also, I believe there was a Diane Duane novel back in the day that had a cetacean character. So, and then of course with Star Trek IV establishing the intelligence of the whales, in canon, it was just seemed like it had to come at some point that we just would get full-on cetaceans in Starfleet.
Yeah. And Scott, just listening to the conversation, I think this you all raise a really good idea too, where if you do link the Lower Decks book with Shackleton, you'll also see that the species options have really expanded what's possible in Star Trek, because you've got your Kofuari in Shackleton, right? And they are very non-humanoid, not what you would normally expect to see on screen, because even now CGI isn't there, right? I mean, you could do Rocket Raccoon in Guardians of the Galaxy, but like you just can't really do the Kofuari on a consistent basis on screen because it's just so different. And I just love that you can expand the Star Trek setting in the universe to bring in that kind of thing, to bring in the cetaceans, to bring in, I mean, even the exocomps that we'll be talking about shortly here. But like you can just expand your brain and just like do so much more. And like I love the idea that you all have a Horta crew member. I'd love to hear how that's working out, because that's a great idea. I can't believe we still haven't gotten Horta in the game yet. We've got to fix that.
He's scary. He's a scary guy. Dr. Dreeg, right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's like Dr. Dreg. See, I always pronounce it Dr. Dreg, and he has a little rhythm whenever he slides into the room, you know?
Yeah. He's terrifying because my characters tell, right, his wife bakes him cyanide chip cookies and he loves them because completely different biology. And so she has to put on like a hazmat suit and cooks these cookies for him, and he loves them. But yeah, he's terrifying.
It came up. Scott will probably know, and maybe it was an STO, but they even interact differently with the ship. They're not going to go up to an LCARS panel, so they actually sit on a circle that allows them to, manipulate it. Was that actually in like a novel? Do you remember, Scott?
I know that I believe it was Peter David that had a Horta character in some of the tie-ins, but I can't remember how it interacted with the technology.
Yeah. So anyway, it's just something fun to think about. So if you have a cetacean, crew member, you may redesign the ship. Sorry. I have this everlasting cough that everyone has now whenever they get a cold. But with a cetacean character, you could redesign the ship. I would love to see, people walking their player characters down a corridor, and swimming next to them are the cetacean, officers who are interacting with them on their own type of control panels. That would be just, some beautiful imaginative play.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'll just add, if you're a fan of puns, the Badgie lesson for these characters is pretty awesome. It made me laugh out loud. Like when I read it, when I first got it, I was like, "Oh, this is perfect."
Yeah. And I'll say, so I got two things to close out on the cetaceans. First of all, credit where credit is due. Allison Seeby wrote the cetacean write-up, so I want to make sure that Allison gets credit for that. And then Chris Webb, the graphic designer who laid out the book, the Badgie lesson for the cetaceans was his primary writing contribution to the book. Because we just ended up missing the cetaceans, missing writing a Badgie lesson in there for the cetaceans. And while he was in the throes of the layout, he said, "Oh, by the way, Jim, it looks like we're missing a Badgie lesson for the cetacean. What do you want to do?" And I was like, "Well, I guess we can throw something together." And he said, "Well, I came up with this," and he threw, he emailed me like, the 3 sentences or whatever. And I'm like, "Great, print it, go." Throw it in there. No notes from me. It's good. Let's do it. And I love that pun too, and really appreciated it. So, all right, good stuff. So cetaceans, that's number 2. So we got that, and we got that. Now we'll go on to the next one, and this is another next generation one-off, I guess character, and it was not even really a character. It was a thing that happened in an episode, and the episode was middling. Not horrible, but not the best moment they've ever had. But of course, Lower Decks being Lower Decks, they took it and ran with it. And the first time we see Peanut and Hamper, I was like, wow, this is pretty funny. And then, boy, they really went some different directions with Peanut and Hamper in season 3. I was not expecting that episode at all. I'm not going to spoil it, but if you're enjoying Lower Deck, you need to go watch that episode with Peanut and Hamper in the. So anyway, we got the exocomps. Exocomps.
Wait, we have Clickets first.
I think you skipped over one. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I did, didn't I? Yep. My apologies. I jumped right over the Clickets. So yeah, let's talk about Clickets. That's a Lower Decks unique species, originating in Lower Decks. So Al, tell us a little bit about your Clicket experience.
Yeah. Again, in an attempt to try to get in some of these species that they're starting to show us in Lower Decks, I really enjoyed the fact that the Clickets didn't like to be complimented. Like they took that as like a sign of aggression, or a sign of like just that different perspective on social cueing. I think is very, very cool to try to role play. So that's why I tried to get them in here. Also, another insectoid species it will be fun to have around. I think and just pretty straightforward. Carapace and pheromones and things like that. I think that they're a fascinating species.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I could actually play this. We at work we had a recognition program that launched, and there were some employees who didn't think that they said, just give us our paycheck. We don't really want gratitude. And I learned that there's this whole segment of society that just doesn't work. Like gratitude does nothing for them. So I could actually play this and just imitate some coworkers if I had to really role play this.
Yeah, I really like the lore that is in here about the relationship between the Clickets and the Klingons is just really funny because it's not something you normally see from other species in the IP, right? It's just like, here's a species that the Klingons were like, oh, we're so sick of you, just go away. We don't want to deal with you anymore. They're exhausting.
Yeah. In credit where it's due, Aaron came up with that idea when I was starting to throw these together. I'm like, where could these Clickets have come from? And he's like, what if they got insulted when the Klingons called them honorable? Yeah. And that led to so many little uprisings that the Klingons were like, okay, we're done with you.
just get out. And I can see them getting along very well with Tellarites. So
yes.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I like about the Clickets is it like just the look and feel reminds me of some of the species that they dropped into like the kind of like the background scenes of Star Trek 3 and Star Trek 4, where you have those like Federation Council scenes. And you got these really interesting alien species designs kind of like on the edges of the screen kind of. And it's like, oh, what's that one all about? What's that one all about? And so it makes me want to see a game where someone plays a Clicket, someone plays an Oz Nullus, someone plays just something really different and just get that all on a crew on the bridge of a ship. So it's not all just, humans all the time or humans or humanoids, right? Because like obviously Star Trek is a much more diverse setting than we even see on screen. And I think the novels and the comic books have done a great job of really bringing in even more diversity. Like, I think about the Titan novels and having a velociraptor as a doctor, right? I mean, that's just great. That's just like, of course, why not? Why not have a dinosaur be your chief medical officer? It totally makes sense to me. And having the Clickets just, adds to that extreme diversity that they can only do so much with on the show between prosthetics and strategic uses of CGI. Any other thoughts on the Clickets before we move on?
Just real quick, their communication pheromones. I like that. If you have antennae, you can understand the pheromones a little bit more because they're specifically tuned. So I could see like a Clicket and a Xindi insectoid communicating back and forth with each other without saying a word. And I think that could be a really fun type of scene to have as well.
Yeah. In fact, now that you mentioned, I almost wonder if the maybe not Andorians, but maybe Anar could get in on that action. Yeah. You could have like completely subtle signals and conversations going on a starship or on an away team or something, and the adversaries would have like no idea. Yeah. you see the antennas, twitching. Yeah, great stuff. Lots of possibilities there. So,
oh yeah.
All right. So now, my apologies for having skipped.
What everyone's been waiting for.
Now we're going to talk about the exocomps and all that stuff I said, 10 minutes ago. Just bring it up again. It was a next gen one shot. I think was it Aquiel? I don't remember if it was Aquiel or not. Maybe it was a different episode. I'm showing my age.
I don't remember.
But anyway, so Peanut Hamper kind of opened up the door for the possibilities of at least a supporting character, potentially a major non-player character being an exocomp. And, just in true fashion, we decided, why not?
Our game had this first again. We had a little scrapper way before Peanut Hamper. I know that when he came on screen, we all cheered. We're like, yes! Yeah. We're all happy that the exocomp made it into alpha canon.
I appreciate the fact that you let me write this up, Jim. I think the first time when I sent the outline to you, you were like, will somebody want to role play an exocomp? And I'm like, yes, they will. And here's why. And so I think that this is what people wanted. And I think you're going to see a lot of exocomps on ships coming up over the next year or so.
I can't wait. And, I have to... You don't have to answer this because it's just going to be my own private headcanon. But I almost like to think that the exocomp could be like a spiritual connection point to your and Allison's 2D20 World Builders game.
Yep.
And with sentient robots, because like I was reading the play test or the quick start, right, and I was getting ready to do your one shot. I was like, oh, this is almost like an exocomp in some respects. Like this sentient, peanut hamster is a full-born sentient robot. So with the AI and all that stuff, and it would totally fit into sentience. So
yeah, and when we were writing this up, we had no idea where they were going to go with the peanut hamper character in season 3. So
exocomps get such bad treatment in Star Trek. They really do from the very beginning. They've got. Did they ever show up anywhere else in beta canon, in any of the novels or comics?
Great question.
Anyone can remember here? No.
I do not recall them in the novels, but I'm way behind in the comics, so that's possible. But
all right, so that's exocomps. Play them; they're fun.
Yes, we squeezed Gorn in next. Although Gorn has been represented before, but I feel like each time the Gorn is brought up in a new series, there are some slightly different things about them that we see. And so again, this was written pre-Strange New Worlds, but post-TOS. So like we basically took what they were doing with the Gorns on screen in Lower Decks and tried to adapt that to a species. So if that's kind of the direction you'd like to go.
I have a theory about that, just to make people, be able to make all the shows come together and make sense. I've said Gorn is a huge polity of a variety of different type of lizards, and who have the ability to genetically extract from other species and therefore slightly transform. I know that's a little play on aliens, but it's not my fault, because Strange New Worlds made them look just like aliens. Totally, Ripley'd that. So the Gorn are an adaptable species in my universe that will come in many forms and fashion. There's even Dino Gorn, but we won't talk about that.
Yeah, and we gave them an ability where they can throw anything and deal damage with it. That was a fun little thing.
I love that. That's such a fun talent. I love it.
Yeah, you everything is basically a boulder to them that they can throw, which is fun. And we do mention a Gorn wedding in the Badgie lesson, just so that you're all aware. We had to give a little nod to that 2-second scene that they showed in a flashback with Rutherford. So I think that'll be a fun new interpretation on the Gorn to check out and try.
Yep, and we'll just see what they do with it in Strange New Worlds. I don't know. I have no idea where they're going with the Gorn and Strange New Worlds. So we'll just have to deal with that if and when we get the license, and if and when we get to that point, we'll figure it out. But in the meantime, Lower Decks Gorn, they're in the book, and you can probably adapt them easily enough for use in the original series too, if you want to play a Gorn character. I think there's some options there. So have fun with it, right?
I can't wait to see Aaron until Aaron writes up the Gorn ships from Strange New Worlds. Those were some bad mama jamas right there.
Well, patience. We got to get there first, right? Anyway, so let's jump on into the Kaelon. Al, what can you tell us about the Kaelon?
So the Kaelon they're like in the backgrounds of many scenes in Lower Decks. They don't actually have like any lines, really, I don't believe. But you see them whenever there's like when you're at a market or things like, or on a starbase, like you see them in the background, and they just weren't ever written up as a playable species. And I think that their concept was so cool from TNG, right? The idea that basically once you reached 60 years old, you voluntarily committed, suicide, which was socially the thing that they did. And I think it raised a lot of discussion back in the day when it first aired. I think it's even more important now. But I think the concept of having a timeline to leave your impression or your legacy on a society or on your family or on, whatever, I think is a really neat concept for a character. So we decided to write them up. I think they called it the resolution was what they would do. And so, that might be something that your character is bound by. Like your character has until they're 60 to finish figuring out this scientific problem that they've been working on. Or maybe it's something that you're rebelling against. Maybe you're like, I'm still going to be good after 60 years old, things like that. I think there's just lots of story potential here.
If you're a twin Kalon, do you have to split the difference?
Al cannot answer, I guess. No.
As a father of twins, so they're very they have like these like black veins on their heads, and it's kind of like a telepathic sensory organ. So they've got a neat little talent here where they can sense people using telepathy nearby and things like that. Mm-hmm. So and I think probably my favorite Badgie lesson out of all of them on this bad boy, because I think it's extremely snarky. And when you look at the timeline where we are, it's pointing a finger and being like, it's making fun of itself, which I think is fun. Yeah.
Yeah. And for those of you who need the reference, the Kalons were introduced in the Next Gen episode, Half a Life. And the main character in that situation was Timison, played by the brilliant late David Ogden Stiers. So if you need a reference, go watch that episode. It's well worth your time.
Yeah.
Great Luoxana Troy episode too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, it's one of my favorites. It's one of my favorite episodes.
Yeah. And if I remember right,
their son was dying, and they needed to, like, this guy was trying to rekindle it before he had to approach the resolution. So it was conceptually really cool. And,
but philosophically, it was a trouble for me because, they were trying to revive something that was coming to an end, and yet he wouldn't allow his life to be rekindled, which I thought was it. Maybe the sun needed to end too. It just left a lot of questions for me.
Yeah.
I thought it was really cool to get them in there. Just some very powerful role-playing opportunities, I think, playing that species.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Good stuff. All right, so that's the Kalon for you. And now going on, we come to 7 years ago when we started this game, when we worked on this game, I never imagined we would eventually get the Packleds into the game as a playable character species. But sure enough, Mike McMahon, thank you for making the Packleds as big of a part of Lower Decks as you did, because it just added some cohesion to the entirety of Star Trek Adventures. I remember writing that sidebar way back in 2016 for the core book. I thought it would be really fun to have the Packleds be one of the first species, one of the first Alpha Quadrant species to delve into the Gamma Quadrant, and being strong and all that stuff. And so I wrote that sidebar and didn't know where it would happen with it, but kept touching on them. And then other writers continued the theme, and then sure enough, the Packleds turned out to be the big bad, as it were, in the first season of Lower Decks, and they continued that theme in season 2. And sure enough, here we are. It's like, of course, why not have a Packled player character? Sure, let's make it happen.
Well, certainly. I mean, the Packleds, they're a ridiculous concept. It fits a lot better into Lower Decks than it did into a live action serious show.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, but we explained all that. So this book, of course, is the one source where we explain the Packleds long game. So people if they really want to know what's up, this was got approved by Mike McMahon. I mispronounced the last name, McMahon, Mike McMahon. So since it got approved, everybody twinkle in your eye, watch out for Packleds.
I tried really hard to not use the word dumb or stupid when it came to Packleds. I used stubborn and diligent, I think was a much better way to describe them. And so conceptually, if the Packleds are trying something over and over and over again, and eventually it works, when it finally does work, that is probably going to be a scary proposition for all involved, including the Packleds themselves, I think that it's a fun species, and make it go is one of the talents.
Yeah, I want to remind people at the beginning of the chapter too, Al wrote a little piece about mixed heritage characters. So you could have somebody who's half Packlet, half human, and therefore they're Pac-Men.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even consider that. I mean, I know it's possible, but like a mixed species Packlet and something else, it's like, oh my gosh, there are so many possibilities there. And then maybe just some ideas that you don't necessarily want to think about how we got there. But sure, why not? Absolutely, it's possible. Anything's possible in Star Trek.
And they're
half Klingon, half Romulan. I don't know. Like,
and the perfect value for a half Packlet, half human is hold my beer.
Yeah, great stuff. And for those of you who like me, have a weird obsession with Packlets, this is the book for you, because we've got non-player characters, we got a bunch of starships, we got the character species right up, and then there's even some details about how to run a lower decks campaign from the Packlet perspective. So there was that one episode where it showed the lower decks experience on a bunch of different ships, Vulcan, Borg, Klingon, Packlet. Why not play lower decks from the Packlet point of view? Do something different with your group and really have some fun with it.
You heard it here first, folks. Send Jim Johnson all of your Packlet inspired swag.
Big hats.
All right. Big hats. Yep, I don't have my hat. It's over there. I'm not going to wear it tonight. But yeah. All right. And then are we at the? We're almost at the end here, right? That was.
We're at our last one.
So that was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, last one. And true to form, this is another. Oh boy, this is another standout next gen species. This was such a good episode. Season 5, Next Generation was just killing it. It was so good. Like they had so much going on in that season. Or wait, was it season 4 or season 5? No, this was shit. I can't remember now. Anyway, Darmok, great episode. Captain Dathon, played by Paul Winfield, with Picard. Great 1-2 combination of powerhouse actors doing their thing, fighting a monster. And the Temerians, such a great, like in that one episode, there was so much world building for this species in just the handful of scenes they had with the little the fact that they spoke in metaphors, but then they had that whole thing, the whole ceremonial thing with the knife and everything else going on. So it was just really cool world building in there. And of course we had just drew my blank on the Kayshawn, right?
Yes.
Lieutenant, the security officer. Yeah. So they made him a key character in the second season. It's like, well, there we go. Temerians, check that box. We're adding them to the mix here. So who wants to go a little bit into more detail on the Temerians?
I mean, from a design perspective, we've got earlier in the book some of the Temerian sayings and things that you could use if you decided to take this species, and try them out. Of course, we know that the universal translator is starting to catch up to the language. It doesn't always, which could provide some pretty fun role play moments as well when you're interacting with others. And I really tried to build upon their view of history, and the idea of having your own history become mythology. I think is a really cool concept. And of course, being able to tell the stories of their past is also a way of passing on knowledge to the future. So that's kind of where I was going with the concept here. And I thought that it really blended well with the characters and the species in general, at least from what we've seen on screen.
I just can't wait to see role-playing groups actually have someone on their team play a Temerian and be like, oh, I'm in the sewers, Jose, with the bathroom door open, something like that. I could just see people really taking this to some hilarity.
Scott, were there any Temerians in any books? Because I don't recall in my research finding any.
Poor Scott, the pressure we put on him.
I don't recall
That's why he's
any.
here.
I don't recall any main characters. There were probably some references because I think it's fair to say that Darmok is a fan favorite episode and character, and because it is such a fascinating cultural concept, and it's another thing that it really is fun to see Lower Decks take advantage of that, and it'd be great to see him turn up in more live action things too, because it really is. There's still a lot more opportunity to dig into their history and backstory, and it's so much of what can be fascinating about Star Trek or science fiction is how do you communicate with all these races that you meet, and you usually come up with some sort of semi-magical thing like the universal translator, so you can just leap over that problem.
Mm-hmm.
And so to come up with something like this that challenges that technology, it was just great world building, as Jim said, and then also it's obviously something that really lends itself to comedic purposes,
mm-hmm.
because of just how strange it can be trying to interact with someone who speaks like that. And so I've really enjoyed what they've done on Lower Decks with that character.
Yeah, and the one thing that they didn't develop a lot on screen was how, what their military, you got a few shots of what the inside of a ship looks like, and that's about it. You don't really get how their military functions all together, which I think is still a question that can be answered in your campaign if you have a main character that is a Temerian.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I don't remember which book now we talked about it in, but somewhere along the way we talked about how when you're building a campaign and you want to really dig into a character, take some species like this and make them your own, and do that world building and add your the Ephrodsians and the Temerians and I guess even the Tellarites to some extent just haven't had a lot of world building built around them. And it's an opportunity for a creative player and game master to grab something familiar. Scott said, this is a fan favorite, popular episode. A lot of Trek fans know Dathan by sight. That's a great episode. It's just classic stuff. And why not? Just jump and run with it. See, explain all that stuff and get into it. So just have fun with it. This is just one of those great opportunities. Sure, everyone's done a Klingon or everyone's done a Vulcan or whatever, but take some of these other species and really add more texture and flesh to them and come up with something cool. All right.
And one last thing, Jim. It's very clear that Badgie does not enjoy Temerian debates.
Check out that Badgie lesson, and one little tidbit from the Temerians just behind the scenes. There was a point in the development of the book where I was working on it late at night as I am wont to do, and I had one of those trademark really bad ideas in the middle of the night, and I had this thought of writing this entire or wanting to have this entire species description of the Temerians written in the Temerian metaphor, right? And just see what would happen, or to do it half in English and then half in Temerian, like side by side, kind of like what you would see with like a Chaucer Old English. You'd get the Old English on one side and the regular English on the other side, just to do a 1-for-1. But I slept on it and I woke up and I said, that's a stupid idea. Let's not do that.
You couldn't. No, actually, I think you could have done it if you made sure that it was all in Star Trek references.
Oh, I could have done that. Damn it. Oh, well. Missed opportunity, Michael. We'll have to save that for an article on continuing mission.
Okay.
Maybe someday when we get around to doing a book of Star Trek poetry, maybe we'll do an epic, a Temerian epic ballad or something. It'll be all in Temerian. It will be all completely in Star Trek references. And Scott will be leaning on you pretty heavily for that one, because we'll need to pull as many esoteric references as we can out of the books, comic books, video games, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then we'll run a contest. Whoever can identify most references, gets a prize. Although we'd have to figure out a way to encourage them not to use the internet, because they could go to memory alpha, memory beta, everything else.
They'd have to. I don't see how anyone can know all the references except Scott.
Yeah, except Scott.
Scott, his spreadsheet scrolling.
Mhm.
Yeah. All right, so that wraps up the newest species option. So we'll close out the chapter here by talking about tools and weapons. And I think this was an opportunity to have some fun. Partly, there's just some great stuff in the first couple of seasons. And Aaron, you really took this by the horns, as it were. And why don't you tell? Or I guess you took it by Kalis's fornication helmet.
The fornication helmet.
And ran with it. So tell us all about what you wanted to do with
this. There, this section, I think I pushed it a little bit on references and whatnot. But should I go over each one of the things that's in here?
I mean, sure, we get time.
Okay, so
maybe not going into too much detail, but at least mention everything so fans get a sense of what's in here.
I have the Cardassian Excruciator that's listed in here that actually references the Terran Empire's, pain booth and all that they actually use that as an idea to make their own kind of nerve stimulator. Classified mission uniform. Okay, because we see those black, special ops uniforms. Well, what does that do? What kind of benefits does it give you? And I thought, well, ideally, since everybody's eyes are different anyway, black is different for every species anyway. But what it's really going to do is act as like an EVA suit that you can like pull up the hood and it'll seal over you.
I did not know black was different. I didn't know black was different for different species. I really didn't.
Well, if you
I
see
thought basically if it's dark. Oh, okay, yeah.
If you see in a different spectrum, it might suddenly appear as something else, right? Like, because black is always based off of a certain dye, right? So it depends on what that dye is based off of. My wife talks about this all the time. Is it a blue black? Is it a red black? What is it? So you might start seeing it differently. And especially if you see into the IR, it might be, you might see the person's body heat a little bit coming through it. So therefore that fabric's color doesn't really matter. Anyway, getting into the details, right?
That's why I like Aaron. That's why I like he just spawned an entire module for me. Okay, cool.
The one, I just want to say real quick, the one regret, and this is so stupid, but this is just how my brain works in the middle of the night. When I was going through this, looking at the layout, making sure that the layout was right, I was going through the loose pages that we got from the printer. I reread the classified mission uniform, and just this dumb idea hit me, thinking, oh man, I wish we had thrown in a sentence about here, like somehow relating the fact that black is a slimming color, and we could have put in some technological BS about, the black color creates a slimmer profile, which helps with camouflage or subterfuge or whatever. So just
it has absolutely nothing to do with like the corsetry that's underneath the suit, right?
Right, exactly.
Absolutely not. No. We have Kalis's fornication helmet, actually the Ryzen replica, because on Ryza the fornication helmet would be reproduced for tourists. And again, like the advantage that it gives you when you have it, better safe than sorry. Use your imagination of why you're better safe than sorry when using the fornication helmet. And I guess we also reference another lost artifact of the Klingon Empire, likely taken by the Herc in their retreat from Kronos, the Codpiece of Glory. We also go then on to the medical shotgun. The medical shotgun was something that I kind of had a raised eyebrow about when I first saw it, but then I thought, no, wait a second, that makes sense. I can make that make sense. So it's about treating lots of people at range very, very quickly.
Hey, now we have the transporter gun, the transport phaser. So, hey, not too far off.
Yeah. So, I mean, when you really need to aggressively treat people, medical shotgun, except no substitute.
Tendi approved.
That's right. And, I love the fact that Tendi wore like a safety glasses during that scene. That just, okay. Anyway, we have the model 2380 Daystrom augmented tricorder. That's the one with the purple stripes. That's really cool. That's often talked about in the show. There you go. See it. The purple stripe I think you're on mute, Jim. But the purple stripe actually is due to reverse engineered Borg nanotechnology manufacturing techniques.
I love it. I love it.
I love that it's just a tricorder, but has an opportunity cost.
Yeah, it has an opportunity, but you can stick things to it.
Mhm.
It can have things attached to the purple stripe. It is useful. It is useful. And we get to the most entertaining reference that I had, the Starfleet excursion helmet. This is it actually has a proper name, and it's the Spatial Phenomenon Observation and Calibration Kit, i.e. its abbreviation is the Spock helmet. So that is exactly the helmet that you can wear, and it should actually have Spock written across it. And it actually is useful because it combines the technology of a tricorder, and it brings it up into a heads-up display, and the flashing light on top is actually an emergency beacon in case you're stuck outside. All right.
Nice. I just want to add the excursion helmet in the draft that I sent to Paramount. We in fact had Spock in parentheses after the Spatial Phenomenon Observation and Calibration Kit, because that's what you do with acronyms. You spell it out and then you put the acronym in parentheses after it, or brackets, or whatever your style is. But they asked me to nix the parentheses. They said I could keep the name in there, but I had to nix the parentheses. And I was like, okay, fans will get it.
I'm actually
figure it out.
I'm actually surprised that they let me keep that title, the actual name of it. But that brings joy to my heart.
Yeah.
The T88 scanning device. So that's like the thing that diagnoses all engineering and medical problems. But hey, don't use it against with things that you don't understand, because it'll just give you strange answers. I.e., use at your own risk, right? And then we get into the weapons, and most of these things are weapons that we have seen throughout the show. Borg Brain Bomb, Crystal Battle Blade, Gelrekian Crystal Spear. Those are good. The one that I thought needed to be included was a giant Vulcan femur bone. Because one often has an opportunity to actually use giant Vulcan femur bones. The Packlet axe, which I hope Jim appreciates, and the Packlet clump gun. And I when I was doing this, obviously I was watching Lower Decks, but I also had this image in my head from Fallout of the junk gun. It just, you can throw whatever into it and it's just going to fire it at high speed. It doesn't matter what it is. So what can we do with an energy weapon that does that? And that's just, it literally just fires every kind of particle and radiation possible to the detriment of everyone around it.
I mean, the clump, it makes so much sense because the clump ships are just different species ships all fused together. I would love to see what a clump pistol looks like, of just like, a phaser attached to,
a disruptor.
And man, that's amazing.
Plasma gun. Yeah.
Love it.
And then a rapier. And the reason why I wanted to put that one in there is because it's the weirdest of the TOS episodes. And I was surprised it wasn't in the core book. But when you have Sulu shirtless with a rapier, it needs to be included. So hopefully people will see fit to use it in their games. I hope they don't see many opportunities to use a giant Vulcan femur bone, because as the description says, is first, where did you get this? Second, why? And third, ew.
Yeah.
Great stuff.
All right, so that is the entirety of Chapter 5, Lower Decks Campaign Guide. I hope you enjoy this walkthrough. I hope you get an opportunity to pick up the book, go into more detail, reading about the species, reading about the equipment. Just a lot of cool stuff here. Hopefully, it gives you lots of ideas and things to do with your game, and also to some cool stuff to drop into your game, whether it's a supporting character, player character, interesting NPCs. Or just some cool stuff to equip them with, like the tricorder. Like Aaron, I just can't get over that tricorder and the fact that you found an explanation for why it has a purple stripe, other than it just being cosmetic. I love it, and that is the power of Star Trek. It reminds me of something Rick Sternbach told me way back in like 2017 when we were working on the game, and I had a question about something. We were at, one of the writers had asked, can shuttles work underwater? And he was like, well, they work in space. Why wouldn't they work underwater? Because it's a sealed environment, right? And he said, you got to think futuristic. And I was like, yeah, it's Star Trek, and it's the far future. So I try to apply that every time I'm writing. I try to encourage my writers to think about that every time. And boy, the purple stripe having the whole indigo and blue wavelengths of light and all that stuff reflected to it, related to it, is just like that's Star Trek. That's Federation right there.
So I've been waiting to ask this question to Scott, who has the it's an honorable, but sometimes, given the craziness of this book, pitiable task of editing all of this craziness. What do you think when you're reading through all these ideas? I mean, I know you're the huge editor for most of the STA stuff, but Lower Decks was a different creature. Talk to us about that.
Well. In many ways, the book wasn't that different a creature. I mean, you've got the humor element of Lower Decks, but you're still just giving a lot of data about starships, technology, characters. So it wasn't really that different from other jobs, except that you can be a little bit looser with how you approach something. If something feels like it's going a bit beyond, you can get away with more, so I can't think of any specific examples, but obviously there's a ton of stuff in Lower Decks that if this were in any other source book, I'd be saying, well, what? No, you can't say that.
Right.
But Lower Decks gives you the permission to, just be a goofball with things. So,
right. Yeah.
So
absolutely. All right, Michael, I think that covers it for this episode. So why don't we jump into gratitude? Why don't you kick us off there?
Sounds good. Well, I wanted to do a little difference on gratitude. I know we do brick and mortar normally, but I actually sent this out into the social media universe and I asked what people love most about STA. So many fans out there, give them a chance to express themselves. So I got a nice list here. Today, I'm going to have it come from Jim Ward, where he says the game is great, but the living support system, including continuing new publications and supplements, is far beyond any other game system I've seen. Adding the ability to contact and give input and feedback to the people making the game, just far beyond expectations. Kudos to everyone involved. So there you go. Piece of gratitude from Jim Ward. Thank you for shouting that out to us. All right, let's go over to Aaron.
Well, I guess I'll talk about like what STA means to me. I get to, for the time that I'm spending writing or the time that I spend in our game, Michael, I get to be in the universe a little bit and think about it. And it's my favorite, it's my favorite franchise. It's my favorite universe to think about because of the hope, the advancement of humanity into the future, all that. I'm just always happy to be there just for the little bit and then try to pass that kind of enjoyment and happiness along to others.
Love hearing that. How about you, Al?
I want to give thanks to Modifius in general for starting up the World Builders program this week. They just did a live seminar. We had over 50 people in there, and they were giving us tips and tricks and pointers on how to make awesome content and how to become game designers ourselves. And, to see a company supporting their aspiring writers in such a way is beyond expectations. So I want to thank Modifius for that, and also everyone that jumped in to the seminar and participated. It was really awesome.
Yeah, it's been wonderful seeing all this stuff getting produced. Good. Scott.
I just love that it creates a new way for fans to be a part of this franchise that we all love so much, because you do get the interactive nature. And it's one thing for fans to sit around and talk about their favorite episode or whatever, but to give them this framework for essentially creating their own episodes, their own adventures, it's a great thing to be a part of.
Totally. All right, Jim, take us out.
I mean, I say it every episode, and I know I don't say it often enough. And I'm grateful to all the fans, like the stuff that Jim just said, the Jim Ward that you read just a few moments ago. It really means a lot to me because I mean, I've told you all before, I've lived in such a Star Trek bubble the last 7.5, 8 years now, working on this game. That's all I work on in terms of like games. Like I don't have time to play other RPGs. Like I'll read them or I'll glance at them just to see what's going on in the greater, RPG metasphere or whatever. But I mean, other than Sentience and a couple of little one-offs here and there, I just don't have time to play. And it always surprises me when fans say, "Oh, you're the Star Trek Adventures team, like it's Nathan and me and all you guys that are on social media. There aren't that many other games that do that." And I'm like, "Why? What? What? I mean, how? I mean, how's that possible?" Because so dependent on the fans to go anywhere. Like I'm surprised there aren't more creators and more team people out there talking on social media. I mean, sure, there's got to be them out there somewhere, but I haven't had time to look for them. So I just rely on the fans to tell me that. And it just surprises me that we seem to be an outlier. I mean, certainly in terms of the production, I mean, we've been firing on full thrusters for years now, and it's not stopping. And I don't know if it's me, but it's all you too, because you all are so prolific, and you all write so fast and competently, or even beyond competently, that it's easy for me to just keep this machine going and keep churning new stuff out and moving. Not churn in a bad sense, but just like keeping the machine running here. And I think, to be honest, I think fans probably don't always realize just how much Star Trek Adventure stuff is out there, because I know a lot of them aren't really focused on the digital releases. And we have a ton of digital releases, like whether it's the free mission briefs or the standalone adventures or the crew packs and stuff, right? We've got way more digital releases than we do print releases. And even then, we've got like 24 or 25 print releases. So we've been banging this stuff out 3 or 4 a year. And I'm sure there's got to be other game lines out there, other companies that are as prolific, but I just don't know, because I don't have a game store near me to go to and shop that doesn't sell just miniatures and model kits, right? Like there aren't that many. I mean, at least in my area, I don't have many game stores that really cater specifically to RPGs. RPGs are usually like lumped in one little section, and then everything else is, Magic and Warhammer and paint and tables to put war game miniatures out, which is fine. I just wish there was more. I just wish there was more print RPGs out there in sufficient quantities that it could fill a room beyond just one little bookshelf or one little section or something. And Al, I saw your eyebrow twitch. I know you have a fantastic store, and you've posted pictures of your shelves, and I love that. And I know, Scott, when I get to Minnesota, we go to that game store near you. I don't remember the name of it. If you can plug it, let me know what was the name of it.
The Source.
The Source, yeah. Because they've got, I mean, that's a fantastic store, and they've got like everything in that store. So grateful for them for being right there on the front lines with the customers. Anyway, I've rambled enough. Look, thank you to the fans. Like without the fans, we wouldn't be doing this, and we couldn't be doing this after 7 years. We're going to keep doing it until we can't do it anymore. So thank you to the fans, and then also thanks to Paramount. Thanks to Paramount, to Mike McMahon for giving us the Lower Decks license, for trusting us with it, and then for letting us. I don't even want to say we got away with it, because they had to approve everything anyway. So we threw all this at them, and they had some notes, right? This was probably the one, I think I've mentioned, this is the one book that we got the most significant notes on over 7.5 years, but it was all good notes, because it was all about dialing in that tone, that Lower Decks tone, where in some cases we went too far, in some cases we didn't go far enough, and so we just had to dial it in a little bit. But we got it done, and I hope you all fans, I hope you check it out, I hope you love it, and just look forward to more. So I'll stop there. I could go on.
And we will go on, because this is the continuing conversation. All right. Come back for more Lower Decks goodness, everyone. Thank you for everyone showing up today to talk about Chapter 5. Until next time, IDIC.
Live long and prosper. Be safe. Be well. We'll see you all next time.